Rarity, Red Sky, A True Love by switched off. For the past 6 months, Rarity had been feeling much alone ever since Spike found his true love in Sweetie Belle. Rarity found out that Spike used to have a crush on her, but it was too late. Then Sweetie Belle had asked Spike out. For some reason, Spike started to falling for Sweetie Belle instead. Rarity took it very hard that she had lost some pony that she really loved her. It took her a few months before to move on. But during this time, she had been doing on dates, on blind dates, and even speed dating. But for most part of her dating life, she usually go on a date with the stallion for at least 4 times. But for the past 6 months, she had gone on with at least 4 stallions on 4 days. But rather from that, none of them seems to be the right pony for her. She often thinks, could that stallion be for me? She still thinks that the right pony is out there for her somewhere. But after a while, she stopped doing with dating. Even if some stallions had asked her out, but she often declined the offer. For the moment, she doesn't want to think here on the focus on dating rather than on her work. So after those times when she had been on dates, she decided to focus on her fashion instead. But for the past few weeks, she had help from her friend Red Sky. Red Sky had lived in Ponyville for about 2-3 years. At first, she was working with Pinkie Pie, and then with Twilight, and even Applejack at the farm, and even sometimes with Fluttershy to help her with the animals. Since Red Sky didn't have any particular work in Ponyville, she decided to try at least different work to see what she could be good on. But so far, at the farm, that was nothing for her. The only type of work that she was good at was actually with Pinkie Pie and Rarity. She felt very comfortable to with Rarity. But there's one thing that she hadn't told anyone. That she was actually in love with Rarity. She hadn't even told Rarity about this because she's afraid that Rarity would reject her. One time she was in love with another mare from Cloudsdale, but she rejected her immediately, which caused the end of their friendship. They had been friends for nearly 10 years, and they broke up their friendship after that she expressed her feelings for her. So the same thing, so Red Sky didn't want that to happen again, so she decided not to tell Rarity. Even if you wanted to tell her, but she didn't. For most time when she is helping Rarity, she can't stop looking at her. She thinks that Rarity is the most adorable pony that is. Very charming, very generous, elegant, but mostly beautiful. The only pony who knows about this secret is actually Pinkie Pie. But Pinkie had made a Pinkie promise not to tell any pony. Even if Pinkie has very hard sometimes to keep a promise, but she always keeps them. But after a while, Red Sky was decided to tell Rarity. But that all changed. because one morning when she came to work, she saw Rarity talking to a stallion. First she thought that the stallion was a client or a customer, but it turns out Rarity had actually started dating again. But still, this is going to be their second date. But from what Red Sky could see, Rarity was actually very enjoying this company of this stallion. He was a very rich pony, was very good in fashion, like her. He was a fashion designer from Manhattan. Then she thought, could she ever compete against that stallion? Since Red Sky was not either rich or not a fashion designer or even from a very noble family, she was from a worker family, and she thought that she would never have any chance with Rarity. But first, she didn't know that this stallion was actually her date. She thought it was just a customer. Because after that, she went in the boutique. She asked Rarity who this stallion were if it was a customer. But then she explained that that stallion was actually her date for tonight. And Red Sky then asked if she likes him since she heard about her previously dates. And Rarity explained that she seems to very much like him. That she might even move in with him if this works out within maybe a couple of months. That made Red Sky very heartbroken. But she managed to keep her calm and act as happy for it. But at the end of the day, Red Sky went straight home and packed a bag and decided to go back home. She couldn't stand to see Rarity with somebody else then. She felt not jealous, she felt just heartbroken. So she packed a bag and left. The next morning, when Rarity came to work, she didn't find she was waiting for Red Sky to appear. But normally she appeared at 8 a.m. every morning. But this morning, no Red Sky. Red Sky wondered was already back home. But then Rarity was wondering why didn't Red Sky appear at work? She always had been at work, perhaps only that sure before Rarity or just only a minute or 2 minutes after 8. But now that has only been 10 a.m. She has been 2 hours late. So Rarity was getting a little bit worried. She immediately started to look around in town for about where she could be. She asked at Sugar Cube Corner with Pinky, but Pinky said that she hasn't seen her since yesterday. And then she ran into Twilight. But Twilight said that she hadn't even seen her either. So what could she be? She even went to her apartment. But the landlord of her apartment building said that Red Sky had actually left. She had moved out. And she asked why. But the landlord didn't know. Only he said that she left already yesterday, after around 7 p.m. But nothing else that she seems just normally. That makes left Rarity very surprised and mostly curious. Why would she leave right away on the same day? That didn't make sense to her. She started to look around in town to ask some other friends if they heard anything why. But after a few friends had said, no, I didn't know why she left or I didn't know she left. But the only pony that might know something was actually Applejack. Since Applejack and Red Sky was very good friends, so she asked her, and even Applejack was startled. She didn't even know why. She thought that she loved to live in Ponyville. But then she asked, where could she move? It turns out that Applejack had said sometimes the Red Sky missed her home in Housdale, so she might have gone back there, she said. But she wasn't even so she wasn't 100% sure if she had moved back home. And even if she did, she had no idea why she just left in the middle of the Sunday like that. She was even stunned. So Rarity took a balloon all the way to Housdale to see Red Sky. It turns out that Red Sky had moved back home to be at her family business. They were working as bakers. Red Sky didn't want to talk to Rarity afterwards. She didn't hate her, just she didn't want to talk to her. Even Rarity tried to explain at least something. But Red Sky first didn't want to speak to Rarity, but Rarity said, at least explain why you just left. You could just told me that you didn't like to live there and just told me or your friends. And Red Sky was quiet at first. She didn't exactly know how to explain this to Rarity. But then she said, the reason why I left is because I saw you with that stallion, and when you told me that he was with date and that you might possibly move in with him after a few months, I didn't want that to happen. Because I love you. That was very surprising to Rarity. And Rarity was just stunned. She was puzzled about all this. Is that true? She asked. The only thing that Red Sky could do was just nodded. It turns out Red Sky had actually been in love with Rarity for some time. Rarity explained, you could have at least told me. But Red Sky then explained why she didn't tell. Which then Rarity thought, but she didn't exactly know what to say. I wouldn't reject you. I didn't end a friendship with that, he said. Darling, you are the most beautiful mare I have seen. And I would have given you a chance to date you. I would, if you had even asked me. But Rarity didn't exactly know else what to say. Red Sky, she started to blush and then asked if Rarity wanted to go. And Rarity said yes. So they decided to go back home to Ponyville. Even though that Red Sky had left her apartment, she managed to talk with the landlord to give it back to her. And as a surprise, he gave it back to her, only that she didn't have to pay for the rent for that month. And this turns out, Rarity had actually talked to the landlord only before that she left. If Red Sky were able to come back, she would pay for the month if she came back. And the landlord had no problem with that, since Red Sky has always been polite, always helpful around in the apartment building with some friends. She even helped the landlord with some handiwork. Turns out that Red Sky was actually good at taking care of things like taking care of the animal problems in the building, that even helped she even helped some of the other attendants in the building if they were sick, that to make them cook some dinner or at least look after the children. He loved that. So that was not a problem. But all things changed after When Rarity and Red Sky was on their first date, they ran into the stallion, and the stallion then asked if Rarity was ready for the date, but Rarity said that she didn't want to go out with him anymore, and he asked why, because she was only on a date with her friend Red Sky, and the stallion was just looking at her and asked if this was just a joke, but all she just thought nodded and shook her head and said, "No, this is not a lie or not a joke. I'm on a date with my beloved girlfriend Red Sky." Red Sky was not exactly prepared for saying that Rarity said they were together. She hadn't even asked her that yet. She was going to ask her on the date about that. But the stallion, he didn't either laugh or say anything else than just, "Well, to be honest, Rarity, I'm proud. I'm happy for you. And I had to say that I actually did enjoy our time together, but unfortunately I have found somebody else. She lives back in Manhattan, so I hope that's not as a problem for you. But I was still looking forward to make some business work with you, if that is still an option." Rarity was actually happy to have this opportunity to make some business with the stallion, so they remained friends. And after this date, Red Sky and Rarity were still together as a couple. At first, the friends and their families were a little bit surprised about this. None of the friends or families were even against this kind of relationship. They were just surprised, but they were all supportive. And after only about 5 years of being together, Rarity had actually been very much happy with Red Sky, and Red Sky had been the same thing with Rarity. And Rarity, well, because one day she actually proposed to Red Sky, and Red Sky, all she did to say was a yes. They actually planned this wedding at Sweet Apple Acres only 2 months later. Red Sky had actually asked Twilight to perform the ceremony and asked Rainbow to be her bridesmaid and Fluttershy to be Rarity's bridesmaid. And they had even asked Spike to be the ringbearer. Spike and Rarity, after all this time, they still had been very good friends, even after that she found out that he was still dating her little sister. And after the wedding, they both actually went to Crystal Empire for 3 whole weeks. And just only 3 years later, Rarity and Red Sky had been talking about starting a family. So they actually adopted 2 beautiful daughters and a local orphanage. But only 2 years later after that, they decided to adopt some more children. So they adopted one son and a daughter. And that's how Rarity and Red Sky from the true love got a big family. The end.